going to have a moment of silent prayer, and then we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to lead us in that. And tonight, if we could, please remember our police department and the Vanover family, as they are in much need of our prayers. Thank you. Amen.
And to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can all be seated. Roll call, please. Oh, you're used to using this.
Yeah. Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Lippert?
Here. Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Approval of minutes. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes that were emailed out? Seeing none, those are approved as written and distributed. Reports and communication.
Thank you, Vicki. As Vicki alluded to with our opening this evening, I do want to ask that everyone please continue to keep our in your thoughts, and especially Chief Steve Vanover, due to a medical emergency that occurred over the weekend. He is off duty for the time being, but we know they are in good hands as they, it was sudden, unexpected, but we've got a of individuals over there to help pick things up and make sure that we are running the way we need to run in order to provide for the safety of our community. But please do hold all of them in your thoughts, and especially Steve and Pam and their family in your thoughts and in your prayers during this time. We were going to try to put something on your agenda tonight with regard to the downtown streetscape plan. However, and it actually, I think, probably worked out in our favor, John could not be with us this evening to share that information. We are at a point, we have from that crew to what we would like them to spec out in order to get designs done so that the paper, so that when we are ready or want to bid out, we will be ready to do so. But we wanted to get that in front of you, make sure that it is a plan in, and wish us to go ahead and take that next step, which is to get the design put together and the bid packets put together, so that if and when we wish to proceed, that's what we're going to do. So we will make sure we get that final design plan there, recommending out to all of you. Those of you, and I think all of you had the opportunity to attend the session at the Fine Arts Council. And so the plan they basically are submitting to us keeps the two-way street, includes the a splash pad area, a tiered seating amphitheater kind of around that with additional seating and overhead type of shading throughout certain areas of the thing. So we'll get that stuff out to you. We will plan on having John present to you at the next council meeting in 2 weeks. For any other questions you might have, also feel free to continue to solicit comments from folks that you know and that are around you once we get those plans out. You've already budgeted us money to do this, so there's no new money that we need for you to complete this. But before I pull the trigger to spend that, is it another 25,000 to get that done? I want to make sure that you all feel like this is what we want our Depot Square to look like for the next 20 plus years. And hopefully longer than that. But so that's where we're at. So you'll see, we'll make sure that you get those plans in the next week or so, and we'll plan on having John be here to present at the next council meeting to get your feedback on whether or not you think it's what we want to proceed with. I think we ultimately, we heard very positive thoughts. The only thing we didn't hear positive thoughts about was the turning the Creek Road into a one-way entry. anyway, it was it was out of the box thought. I thought it made some sense to give us some more public space down there. But that's not the one they're recommending, and I think the reason why is because it does not have the kind of backing that we would usually want to see. But if there's a sufficient amount of you that think that's something we should continue to study, please let me know or let Jim know, and we'll certainly take that into consideration in what we present to you in 2 weeks. That's all I have by way of report, so thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move, Mr. Tankersley.
Just to let you all know, I received the community development monthly report, and John is talking about that, so I just forwarded his report so everybody could read also.
Perfect, thank you. And instead of taking this to a committee, I felt like it would be best for all of council to hear it all at once, because we really don't have to do any legislation or anything on it. They just wanted our input, so to meet with all of us at once seemed to be the smartest thing to do. Okay, we'll move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Before we get into the legislation, one item regarding Houck Road and the construction project there. The contractor is anticipating starting on Monday, September 13th. Given the culvert work, the road will be closed to through traffic for approximately 45 days. A week or two ago, we sent letters out to all the businesses on Houck Road, and we have been taking some questions from them regarding this. But basically, depending on where you're at with Houck Road, you'll either have to enter from 42 or from Reading. You will not be able to go through for about 45 days.
Okay.
Legislation-wise this evening, 2021-53 deals with senior housing and some additional funding that's needed because of unanticipated refunds. Scott and Steve are here to talk about this if there's any questions, but it's pretty standard. This is we've just had more refunds than typical, so we just needed a little bit more money in that line item.
Any questions on that? Thank you.
2021-54E is our annual special assessments for high grass and weeds. The listing is in your packet. Again, Steve's here tonight to talk about that if you have any questions.
No. Thank you for cutting all the grass. Well, I know. Thank you, guys.
Ordinance 2021-55 is extending, I'm sorry, it's just the first reading, but this is requesting an extension with swim stake for a year, but it's just a first reading this evening. It's a 3% increase from this year's. 2021-56E is concerning our elevator project at the community center. We were supposed to open up bids last Monday, I want to say. We did not have any bids, however, so we will be re-advertising, and this piece of legislation will give us the ability to enter into a contract when the time is right to get that project going. Michael, do you want to add anything to that? Okay. 2021-57E concerns Gorman Park. Michael's here to talk about all the details associated with this. Yeah, there's a little bit going. I can.
For those of you that have seen Gorman lately, it's looking awesome. It's kind of a mud pit, but that's exciting because it's going to be a really, really nice project once it's all wrapped up for the first phase. They recently poured the splash pad. Go check it out. It's a massive circle. You can't miss it. The walls are starting to go on the shelter. We've had some delays, but we're really excited about the project. There are a few, like I said, delays on some of the materials, but we're super pumped about it. We're even more pumped about the next phase, and that's what we're hoping to do tonight is get some additional funding to move us into the next phase for two things. One, this funding will allow us to use the state capital money we were given, $150,000, to start the demolition of the pool as well as the schoolhouse. So we're ready to go on that since that project is expected to be over the threshold, we do have to do a bidding process. So this will allow us to go into contract with Miguel Smith Punchin to start that. The additional funding we're asking for as well is for the design of the remainder of the park. So I'm calling it Phase 2. We will do a process that involves all the stakeholders. So the Community Services Committee would invite any folks that chose to come, give feedback on the next phase of the park. Originally, the concept included a dog park, concept included a outdoor fitness area, a larger gated area for public works storage. It kind of included a community garden and kind of included a pond, which those things towards the end I think were kind of nixed. But what this is going to allow us to do is make sure we go back to the drawing board and see what we want matches what the needs are. We know pickleball has become a big deal in our community, so we think a sport court is probably in order in the next phase that allows for that. But that's what this money is hoping to be able to do, is design the next phase and then also get it ready for a grant through ODNR. It's due November 15th. So once we have the design, estimated cost to construct, I can continue to try to get additional funding through the state to help us pay for the project. We've already been pretty successful so far. We want to continue that success. So that's why it's an emergency this evening. But yeah, we're pretty excited about it, as you can tell.
Great.
Yeah. Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Wilson?
Just one question, the splash pad that's been poured,
Yes.
do you anticipate having water turned on at all this year?
No, unfortunately not. I don't think it's going to be completed in time where it will be warm enough to operate. It's a little disappointing that we're not going to be able to, but we're expecting a really big grand opening next spring. And that's the beauty of the splash pad, is it'll be able to be used probably in early May, whereas the pool is typically Memorial Day, because that large body of water has to really warm up. But you can imagine some early days in the beginning of May, warm enough for the little kids anyway to go running through the sprinklers. So not me, but
Yeah.
Mr. Lipper has already said he's interested in being the first one to run through the splash.
I think that's an awesome idea.
We're excited about it.
Like,
So
I'm very
there to
excited
watch
about
that.
really
that.
excited about it.
When he goes,
Inaugural sprint.
You
I don't know about that, but
There's a slide feature too.
so we're pretty pumped. So
Well,
thank you.
perfect. Thank you so much.
thank you all.
Resolution 2021 R11 talks about the grant that Michael's just referred to. Last, we do request an executive session this evening under ORC 121.22G1 with likely action afterwards.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lucas? Seeing none, I'm going to take a motion to go into executive session regarding ORC 121.22G1 regarding employment. So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Tankersley. I'll let her catch up. You're welcome. And roll call. And I promise we won't be in there very long. I will kick them all out.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay, all elected, please. Mr. Lucas, Noah, and anybody else?
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
All right. Okay, well, the executive session was my report. I'm sorry you guys all missed it. It was enlightening. Not really. Thank you very much for all being here. Clerk of Council, Mrs. Buhite?
Just a couple things. Ruby Tuesdays, located at 2235 East Sharon Road, requested a transfer of ownership, and after no objections were raised, the notice was signed and returned on August 9th. And also, completion of the Ohio Sunshine Law training course was done. And all of you are my designees. The end.
Thank you,
You're
Mrs.
welcome.
Buhite.
Yay.
Auditor's report, Mr. Cunningham.
I don't have a whole lot to report this evening other than we're about 58% through the year, and we're running from an expenditure perspective 4 to 5% lower than that across the board, so we're in good shape. I also want to embarrass Mr. McKeon on,
Please do.
he doesn't realize I'm doing this, but on Thursday, the C-Suites Award is happening at 10 a.m. Mr. McKeon is a finalist in his category, and it's free to get on there if you guys want, if you have time. Just register and hopefully watch this guy win. So let's all be rooting for him. It's the C-Suite Award for his category. I think the category is CFO, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I believe Mr. Lucas nominated him. Okay, thank you.
It's Thursday, September 2nd.
He did straight. Well, was it a 6-minute or a 60-second video he had to do? And I believe our own Anna was the director and producer of that said video. So it's a team effort here at Sharonville. All right, treasurer's report, Mr. Irie.
Good evening. As Mr. Cunningham indicated, we're 58% through the year, and the receipts are looking real good. We're up 15.28% for the year, and that's ahead of pace from 2017, 18, 19, and well ahead of pace of 2020. The lodging tax is down 3.68%. I did want to touch on the interest rates from our investments real quick, even though it's really nothing of interest. No pun intended. Little treasurer joke there for you. The Star Ohio rates are maintaining real low at 0.08%. We do have investments at Red Tree where we have commercial paper and CDs and other, and those are doing a little bit better, about 1.5%. So that's my report.
Okay, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll go on to our law director, Mr. Pete Meyer.
Just, I know if I announced it before, but next Friday is our hearing on Code 51. It's remote. Our portion is going to be put on at the police station, and it's next Friday at 9:30, September 10th. And I think we hear within about a month what the hearing officer decides, and then either side that is unsuccessful can appeal that. So it's going to be a long process, but at least we're finally getting to the first step.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And tonight, we get to hear from our one and only Finance Director, Mr. McKeon.
Thank you. So my annual report is not as entertaining as it is long, so we'll get started. So.
I gave him a time limit too, by the way, people.
So, the annual report's for 2020, but obviously it's August 2021, so I take some liberties and kind of speak a little bit about both years. So 2020 was a very challenging year. I want to thank the staff for all the work they did and kind of dealing with that, rolling with the punches, and kind of getting used to the constant change and evolution that we saw. Couldn't do it without them. They're not recognized very often unless something's wrong, and but they do a big part in making the trains, keep running. So the finance staff there have been in place and with us for many years. The tax group, for the most part, has been with us for many years. We got some new faces over there for the first time in a while. We recently promoted Angela Henry to full-time. She had joined us back there in 2019. Has been a great addition to the group. We also added Stephanie Mahan. She joined us from North College Hill, so it was great to get some more kind of experience, a little bit of experience in municipal income tax already. And then just recently we brought in Teresa Spa to take the spot that Angela had vacated. So we're anticipating a couple of really big losses here at the end of the year. Faye will be re-retiring, so she has been a workhorse through and through again. So will be greatly missed. And also David Winks, who a retired school teacher, school principal that joined us back in 16 and has given us 5 excellent years of service, was a great addition to the group, to the culture over there. They'll both be very, very missed. So we just wrapped up late June there, the annual audit. At this point, we're in a little bit of an odd situation this year. We were a federal single audit because we had over $750,000 in CARES Act money. So this is our first federal single audit since the early aughts, I think 03, 04. So we've received an opinion on our annual financial report, and we filed that with GFOA. So we received an unqualified opinion, which, unlike it sounds, is a really good thing. That means there was no qualifications to everything was materially stated. So that's been submitted to GFOA for award. We're awaiting to wrap up some confirmations on our federal schedule number with ODOT, with the Houck Road project, and the ODOT right-of-way project. So we've went through that. That is like landing on the moon as far as ODOT's worksheets. So we're getting those filed to get the reimbursement for the right-of-way money that we put out. Most of that will come back to the city, and but they can also confirm the federal grant amount. This year's audit will include some federal reports, and along with a federal schedule. So that schedule is something we haven't had in an audit report in quite a while, and something that, because of the CARES Act, is thousands of municipalities and townships across the country are having single audits for the first time in 15, 20 years, if not ever. So it's kind of an interesting time in that government audit world. So we should be wrapping that up here in the next 2 to 3 weeks and getting that to a conclusion. That'll get filed with the state auditor's office, and then probably 45 to 60 days after that, so late here in the fourth quarter, we'll all get the email that the audit's out there for release, but that'll be a little bit later than normal. Already kind of touched, we submitted the report to GFOA for review, so looking forward to that. The city's received recognition on our annual financial report every year since 2001. We were involved, the tax department and the finance group were involved with a lot of the facade grants and the COVID-19 grants last year. That was, although very different work, was quite a bit of work for both groups. There was this Supreme Court case we touched on last year, talking about centralized collection and the state of Ohio's collection of net profit tax. So we got kind of 2 different opinions. Everybody came away a winner and a loser. So the state is allowed to continue to collect business profit tax, but they're not allowed to charge a fee on that. So we received a refund of the fees that they had collected to date, and rolling forward. So at least at this moment, that's a little bit of a pump the brakes on their part as far as to take more away, like collection of withholdings. As everybody's fairly well aware of at this point, there's a lot of discussion and 5 big lawsuits out there on the work-at-home issue, and where municipal income taxes can and cannot be applied. The original state of emergency laws kind of, they said that you would continue to have withheld at your principal place of work. That's been challenged quite a bit since people were working at home. There's no decision on these lawsuits yet. There was kind of an evolution of this in this year's state budget, and it allowed, there will be a, individuals will be allowed to file for a refund of 2021 days that they worked at home. So those won't be to quite the magnitude that 2020 is. Those court cases could change the decision on 2020. So that's all something we're keeping an eye on. There's no great way to measure that. We have $35,000 in refund requests for 2020 that we've turned down to date, which is in no means an accurate measurement of what that number could be. So we have a very diverse business makeup, and we've had some really strong years. So we're, we've never been in a better place to face that adversity, but that's an issue we're keeping an eye on. We've continued our work with Mayor's Court. We always thought that that would be something that's worked great, and it's worked far better than we ever expected. We've brought in $178,000 over the last 2 years with that program. We had our second Board of Tax Review over the last 6-year period, so it's not a group that meets often. So that came out successful. So the budget process, as we wrapped up 2020 and looked into 2021, was very successful. I kind of touched on some similar data to this last year, but it was how much we've set aside. Since back in 2015, we kind of started this tradition of setting aside balances over the GFOA recommended amount. So I was kind of interested to revisit this, and last year I think I quoted just the capital number. So this year I kind of put a table together of everything. It was pretty neat. So for debt, we've set aside out of the general fund $4.7 million since 2015. That $800,000 back in 15, we kind of set aside what we owed on those our last of our bonds. So that freed up about $400,000 in the 16 and 17 budget. So back then that was really kind of cool, and really allowed us to enhance what we were doing capital back then. We set aside approximately $4 million there, $3.9 million in 19 and 20, and that really put a big dent in what we owed on the police station. That $9 to $10 million project we borrowed $5 million on. We're currently down to $1.1 million on that note. So capital, you can see where we've really pushed the envelope and accelerated the resources we had available to do things like build a police station with not a whole lot of debt, or long-term debt anyways. We set aside $11.4 million since 2015, so something really cool and we should all be really proud of. A lot of those resources have gone to projects, like the street projects we've done in recent years, the double down street programs, where we did 2 years in one, and the new police station. But some of those resources are still in the 401 capital fund and ready to be put to work. We also made some smaller set-asides to kind of boost our separation benefits fund to be prepared for outgoing liabilities. Fire has done a really similar practice, and it's also worked out very well. You can see between the capital building and the capital equipment fund, we've set aside a little over $5 million towards capital there. That's worked out great. The 430 equipment fund's one we started back in 2012. That's that one was set up under a revised code section. It has a 10-year life cycle. We'll actually look to probably discuss renewing that next year. We originally did that to set aside for engine 86, which we saved up the money and bought in a fraction of the time we thought we would, because of the work we did here. So separation benefits fund is one that was kind of a very underfunded long-term liability when we started this back in 15. So we've set this aside. Some of this has been put to use as those individuals have begun to retire in the last few years. But we're trying to keep that kind of filled at a $500,000 to $600,000 level, and that's worked out really well. similar to what we said last year, we've had a ton of capital going on. You know, beginning back in 19, it really started ramping up, and 20 and 21 have been no different. And we're kind of, you know, putting some projects to rest, like the police station, the fire station remodel, the admin remodel we finished early last year, but really starting to crank up the FEMA project and some of these other ones. So it's been big. Some of these, you know, some of these like right-of-way on Houck Road is a big process and a lot of paperwork that goes with that and a lot of grant accounting. So those have been interesting and a challenge. This was really fresh on our mind last August, so this is pulled directly from last year's report. But the refunding we did of the 2010 Convention Center bonds, we refunded $25 million last summer, and we were able to obtain you know, cash savings of 3.1, the net present value savings of 2.6. So that was really cool, and does a lot of awesome things for the funding model rolling forward. So the big list there of all those folks at the city and all of our partners that we work with to make that happen. So, as I mentioned, we had about $6 million worth of one-year notes. We retired $4 million of that this year, which was really cool. And we're down to $2 million. 1.05 of that relates to the fire station. $950,000 of that relates to the Convention Center 2010-2012 expansion. Dealing with the pandemic, we discussed a lot before. We set up Zoom stations over there to keep those that came in, the residents that came in for service, were able to do that in a safe environment, and also kind of keep our room where everybody's kind of laid out in a spacious but not so large area, able to keep them safe by setting up these Zoom stations where people could do these exchanges of documents at a couple of counters we set up, but yet communicate with these folks and have a screen and talk to each other remotely from the other parts of the office, because there is some extra rooms over there. So the scheduling software that we rolled out this summer had a follow-up email that would go out after their appointment for a survey. So these surveys came back, 98% of our surveys came back with 5 stars, which this blew me away when I saw this. So Linda did a really cool thing, and she hung up a lot of comments. This is kind of in the hallway in the back where everybody kind of walks in going in. So it kind of reminded everybody what a good job they did, but the priority we put on customer service there. So it was really cool. I'm always amazed that people take the time to do that. That was really neat. So the ever popular charts and graphs section. Usually I pull the budget versus actual section out of the CAFR as one of these, but this year I was working on some revenue data for the GFOA study that we're looking at kind of updating the 2014 study and taking a revisit of that. So we could stare at this for hours if you let me talk about it, but we'll try to condense it down. It goes all the way back to 2005 here on the top through 2012, and then 2013 to 2020 there on the bottom. It's the same data for the different years. You can see taxes definitely champion the total. They run 85 to 92% of the total, very concentrated. You can see where in 2009, 2010, we really took the dip with the recession, and really how things have just continued to escalate year after year since then. Going down to 2020, it's really interesting to see how, unlike 2010, when everything got affected with the recession, the pandemic really had polar effects on revenue. Some stuff went untouched, unscathed, and really took a punch. So, which is expected with what was going on. So, charges for services were greatly impacted. Fines and forfeitures were greatly impacted. Investment earnings have started to take a clip. You can see where we really hit, some really awesome numbers back in 2019, and those things were really starting to roll. That's taken a dip, and we'll probably kind of see a little bit more of a dip in 21. Other revenue actually took a big uptick. the Bureau of Workers' Comp kind of is their version of governmental support, released a lot of the funds that they have on hand. So we basically got 3 years worth of premium refunded to us in the year as their as their version of economic incentives to keep the economy rolling. So intergovernmental is an interesting line. You can see back on the top row where back when the local government fund was robust and not a fraction of itself that it is today, and the inheritance tax was still in place back then. You see where intergovernmental revenue was a big part of our general fund budget, and how small of a chunk that is today. So some interesting data. I will share this by email so everybody will have a copy of the whole report to stare at later. I always like to throw this one in. It's kind of a snapshot of our top 10 employers versus the rest of our economy. So the top 10 in 2020 made up 27.4% of total collections. And we have some nice data up there. That's been as low as 25.6% back in 16 and as high as 30, the mid 30s there back in 2002. So we're definitely in a much better place now than we were then, and it's for a city with a large automobile plant, the mid 20s is actually rather diluted for the top 10. Our top 20, top 25 looks a whole lot more like our top 6 through 10 did a decade ago. So what are we working on now? What's coming down the pike? We have penciled in the council budget work session for Thursday, November 5th at 6 p.m. We will shoot to have digital packets out this year. On October 26th, if anybody will need paper to work with, we can accommodate that as well. The tax office has signed up with the Attorney General's office to kind of assist with our collections. They have a really efficient manner in the way that they go after collections, and we think that's going to be very fruitful and a very efficient way to go after some stuff that isn't large enough to actually bring into marriage court. So that's going to be a really nice tool with the toolbox. I mentioned we're revisiting the GFOA study. I do kind of expect, as our economy has grown since 2014, we'll see an uptick in what we recommend as a kind of a fund balance range. And this study is also supposed to include a bigger, a more robust discussion of risk and assessing risk and being able to model risk rolling forward. So it's pretty neat. GFOA was excited about a first client that they did a traditional fund balance study on. They're going back to do the risk study on as well. So some neat data. Income tax collections year to date. Wanted to touch on this. Kurt mentioned this in the treasurer's report. We're doing very well at the end of July. We were up 15.2%. Profits, net profits, are really championing the day. Withholdings, I would say, are doing very good. Not at all times high, but very good historically. Net profits and business profits are far more subject to change, like the wind blows. So I sound a little bit like the boy that cries wolf, because back when these were $2.5 million, I said these are numbers that can cut in half really, really fast. You could have a large amount of companies decide to go capital and not have those kind of profits, or other accounting things happen really quick. It doesn't have near the population size that withholdings does. It's made up of a smaller group. There's a lot of companies here that have a lot of employees here but don't have a lot of net profits here because they have operations across the country. So that number has really taken off this year. This is something that other cities are seeing as well, though, but something we don't expect to continue long term. It obviously will create the expense budgets are running just fine. So we will have the opportunity to meet some new fund balance goals, assuming the GFOA study comes out on the higher side than we are now. But we'll also have some opportunities to likely set some funds aside to kind of further put some seed money towards 5-year capital goals. So, any questions?
Anyone have questions? Thank you
All right,
very
thank you.
much. And speaking of our 5-year capital goal, you should have gotten a second email with 2 dates added in September. So please look at those dates and let Mr. Lucas know if you're available for any or all of those dates. Thank you, Scott. It is our time now to hear from residents. Are there any residents that wish to be heard this evening? We may need to just tack. Thank you. Tell us your name, please.
Glenda A. Smith. And I'm here to talk to the Sharonville residents about what the Glenda A. Smith Youth Sanctuary is offering Hamilton County at large, as well as Sharonville residents. The Glenda A. Smith Youth Sanctuary is a 501c nonprofit. Its mission is to bring businesses, other nonprofits, and governments together, resources for family and children so that they can reach their maximum potential. There's 2 services that we've been providing for a year now, and a third that we're working on. And the first 2 are a Zoom youth discussion series. And you can get more information about that at gasmithys.com, and it has the meeting ID and password. Youth from 9 to 18, and we answer basic questions for youth and talk about concepts based, and we try to look at real life situations because kids have a lot of questions. And then and then we do give a gift card for every 4 sessions that the youth attend as a motivation. And then the second thing we provide are gift cards to anybody who requested that needs food, just a little something to get over the hump. You need gas, give gift cards for that. You need a crock pot. Just, you know, something to get over the hump. And you can email us at gasmithys@gmail.com. And then the third thing we're doing, which is really big, is raising money to build a residential facility for homeless youth on property that has been allocated to us by a church. So that's the third thing that is coming. That particular homeless residential facility basically will be teaching faith, work ethic, and charity. And the reason why I created this nonprofit is because I was raised by a single parent on limited resources, and it took my faith, my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, teachers, principals, professors to help me to get to where I am now, which is 5 degrees later. And so that was charity of their time, talent, whatever. And I'm very grateful for that. And I, just want to pay it forward, and that's why this organization was created. Terry, I don't want to butcher your last name, but Terry has contact information, but if anybody else wants the contact information, and I just want the residents of Sharonville to please reach out. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel anything like that. Just reach out if you need any type of resources. And and that's another thing we do. We match people with people. I've had people come to the nonprofit and say, we want to do X. Do you know anybody that needs this? Sure I do, So it works for everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome. Does anybody want to contact her?
She'll just email it out to us.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
In the new fitness workout place, is that, are you affiliated with them up here on 42?
No, we're downtown on Court Street. We're operating basically out of my law.
Okay. There's a 501, there's a foundation that is affiliated with a new workout facility here on 42, and I don't know if that was the same one you had there. But, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Tankersley? Did you want to speak, Jerry? Oh, you're fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Jerome Fry, 10509 Thornby Drive. And I'm disappointed in what I've seen, a lack of patrol in the school zone at Princeton Elementary. And he lives in the school zone, I believe, am I correct, Rob, where the sign is there? Yeah, and I do too. And I'm afraid the majority of the people go at least 50% over the speed limit in the school time. And it's disappointing. I was wondering if there's any way you can get a grant to have the flashing school signs like you do where up by Creek Road.
They can look into it, but I don't know that, we've got a grant right now
Okay.
currently for safe schools, but it did not include Evendale
No, this is on the
Elementary.
Sharonville side, not the Evendale side.
Right, but that's Evendale Elementary School that you're referring to, correct?
Yes, but it is,
Okay.
it is on Thornview because I
Right.
talked to the chief.
No, I understand.
Okay.
It's on Thornview.
No, not on the other side. I don't expect that.
Right.
And-
Um,
Oh, and along those same lines, I don't see the police, not just our street. Come through, I know.
they're out everywhere. If you saw the list
I know,
of
it's,
calls that they're making every night, and there's 4 of them, they
See,
are,
I understand, this is a large city for
Right.
patrol officers.
right, they are out there. 5 officers on duty at, staff out there. We're
I know you
doing the
can't
best that we can. And unfortunately, with Evendale's drive-throughs, we got drive-throughs on Weiss Carver, we got drive-throughs on Thornview, so everybody has complaints about this, and we're trying to do what we can.
No. Like, was it Mr. Lipper, we was referring to that sign on Plainfield, right? I can't repeat what was on the sign because it should
Yes.
be in the minutes, right? Yeah. Somehow they made him take it down. I don't know why. I don't know if it did any good. It might have made somebody angry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't know, I told I'm out at all hours because I got that dog. But one night there was somebody came down the street doing at least 70, maybe couldn't stop. I might have said that before. That's frightening.
Can I just, not to,
Go ahead.
when
Yeah.
you see that, do you call the police department?
Have a phone on me then, I might be half asleep like I am now.
Okay, I mean, because.
Not even think about it.
I mean, that would be, something like that, if you literally see a semi going 70 miles per hour.
It wasn't a semi, it was a car and it didn't have any lights on it, so I couldn't give them a license number.
Well, but if you have a car that you think is going 70 miles per hour down Thornview, if you think about it, and I understand it's not easy, but call.
Yeah.
And if we've got somebody who can respond, they'll respond.
But the guy would have been, on that part, the guy would have been gone before anybody could have showed up.
Okay,
I know
we
he's.
can make as many excuses as we want.
Yeah.
Seriously, they don't mind if you call them.
Okay.
We
They've
may have
got a
had someone in the
dispatch number.
neighborhood.
There might be somebody down the street that you just don't know is there.
Yeah.
That would.
I didn't know.
So-
That's all right.
Phone with you from now on. Plug it in. I can tell you the principal.
As far as I'm concerned, they do with no
Yeah.
stop.
To
Okay. I'm not just out. The delivery on them.
I can't.
But they were lost.
Is doing the best.
They may not be. I
Okay.
don't see them. That's the way I can. No.
Or we get,
No. No. Yeah.
unless there is an.
And that was, I drive. He was
Well, there-
going from somewhere to,
Okay.
I don't want to say any more about that because that made me mad. Okay, I think I said enough, but the really thing I worry about is at the school zone. You know, it's 20. The speed limit's 20. And like I said, I'd say everybody's doing a minimum of 30 during the school time. The rest of it's 25.
And I know with the school tucked in back up there, I can see your point needing
Well, there's
flashing
there's
lights.
kids on those street corners every morning all along there. Some of them are walking to school.
Some of them are catching buses, yes.
Yeah, and I don't remember if they had crossing guards this year or not. They used to.
But
That's neither
normally
here
the
nor
school zone is in effect a little bit before school starts and a little bit after, not all that time. So if you've got high school kids, the school zone may not be in effect at that time, but still people should not be driving that fast down Thornview Drive, especially with all the stop signs. It's hard to get up that speed and then stop.
I mean, I was wondering, about that flashing sign.
We can look into it.
No, that's set at 25. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
it's 20 there.
We can look into it.
And then historical fact, we lost a dog. A long time ago, we had a dog, and somebody came from the stop sign right in front of that school and ran over our dog. That's why it kind of hurts me there at the school zone.
Okay,
Right, thank you.
thank you.
Is it possible, I know in the past, the police department would, I know their resources are limited now, to put up the surveillance, and it would count the number of cars, it'll document the time of day and the speed?
It's already been done.
They have, haven't they?
It's already been done, Dave.
Okay,
Yeah.
it has been?
Yes.
Yeah, they have done
Thank
that.
you.
They did it while the construction's going on up on Glendale Milford.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit of a follow-up on that. Jerry, correct? Yes. Jerry, you seem very vigilant, and you seem like you kind of know what's going on pretty, readily. And you also seem, with Mr. Tankersley, pretty friendly with your neighbors. If there's a few offenders that you can kind of picture in your head a little bit more regularly than others, then it may behoove you to see if any of your neighbors have some blink or ring or something doorbells, cameras that kind of give surveillance already on the street. I'm down by St. Mike's. I have cameras on my house. They're just little, I'm not telling you to get some, but it may be beneficial to see if anybody's able to kind of catch individuals doing this on a regular basis and then maybe turn that over to the police. That's all, just an idea.
I don't know, you can ask the council if he knows. I don't see the street up there.
Just a suggestion.
Hey, Glenn, with the older houses up there, actually a majority of the doorbells are in a V section to where a ring camera won't work. You'd actually have to do outside cameras on your house.
It's a good idea. I don't think they exist in our neighborhood.
All right. Anyone else this evening? We're going to move on to our council committees. Community development, Mr. Tankersley.
I submitted my community development report to Ms. Buhite and also shared it with everyone else.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Community services, Mr. Lippert.
Thank you very much. The official notification was last council meeting. We are meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock, administrative conference room. Mr. Bosom, if you could add Mr. Fry's suggestion of blinkers in the school zone at Evendale Elementary as a discussion item. Thank you very much, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Budget and Finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. My report summarizes the work done on August 17th. Essentially, we reviewed the convention center expansion. We looked at the Q2 tot collections for the county and the city, reviewed the estimated cost update, reviewed the proposed funding models, also looked at the Northern Lights TIF funds, and reviewed the potential timeline for financing. And through all that, the Budget and Finance Committee is recommending that the expansion proceed forward. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Project Oversight, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. No report.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Honored Citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Yes, tonight I'm honoring the Sharonville, the people who run the Sharonville Food Pantry and the mobile pantries. And these people are Tracy Lovett, Amanda Hodge, Terry Dunnigan, Debbie Mackey, Ben Castell, and also Chief Mackey is also in assisting a lot of times when Ben's away from the desk, and he also assists with the whole pantry. So I'd just like to honor them tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go, Ms. Chief Mackey. Can you share that with your peeps? Thank you. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on September 7th, 4 o'clock at the Administrative Conference. Oh, I might add too that on Concerto this past week or two, we had a police car sitting in the morning. That 8 o'clock hour seems to be the bewitching hour up Concerto and down Grandview to circle things. And I sat there for a good 15, 20 minutes, but you know, it's hit and miss.
Right.
So you really can't tell, but they are out there looking, and that's all you can really do, and kind of watch them. But it's going to be there till October now, according to Mayor Finan, so long time yet.
Thank you. Rule suspension motion, first and only reading with immediate effectivity for ordinances 2021-53, 2021-54E, 2021-56E, 2021-57E, and Resolution 2021-R11E. So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and that does carry.
And Vicki, we got the late delivery on the R12 too.
Ah, that is correct, yes. Is there a motion to accept late delivery on Resolution 2021-R12E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, yes. Yes. Those opposed, no, and we will accept late delivery on that. Thank you. It already did it. Oh, we didn't include that one? Okay, it's not on here. Okay, then we will need a rule suspension. Is this immediate effectivity also? Just like the others, first and only reading with immediate effectivity for Resolution 2021-R12E. I need a motion. So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mrs. Knight. All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and we will proceed on. We have no unfinished business, so it's all new business.
First and only reading of Ordinance 2021-53, amending the 2021 appropriations for senior housing deposit funds.
Is there a motion to pass Ordinance 2021-53? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Tankersley. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-53 has been approved. First and only reading of Emergency Ordinance 2021-54E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to notify the county auditor of a special assessment on certain properties in the city of Sharonville, to reimburse the city for costs of removal of weeds in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 73154, and Sharonville Codified Ordinance, Section 52105, which is the notice to cut weeds, construct, repair, or clean sidewalks, abate nuisances, and Section 521.13, weed removal, for calendar year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-54E? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2021-54E has been approved. It's just a first reading of ordinance 2021-55, authorizing Safety Service Director to enter into an addendum to the current contract with Swim Safe Pool Management for aquatic operations, extending the contract for 1 year for the calendar year 2022, and approving the fee schedule for that year. Next is the first and only reading of emergency ordinance 2021-56E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract for the replacement of the elevator at the Sharonville Community Center and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-56E? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2021-56E has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2021-57E, amending appropriations for 401 Capital Fund and authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into contracts for the design of the next phase of the Gorman Park renovations and contracts for the demolition of existing structures and construction of additional park amenities and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-57E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2021-57E has been approved. First and only reading of emergency resolution 2021-R11E, resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to submit an application for a federal land and water conservation grant through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2021-R11E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency resolution 2021-R11E has been approved. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First and only reading of resolution 2021-R12E, resolution to authorize and approve the resignation agreement between the city of Sharonville and Kirk Mousa and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2021-R12E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-R12E has been approved. Sure.
Okay, to the credit before the chief ran over, he did call me back, and we had a long talk about some of these issues. I just wanted that to be in the minutes. Thank you.
Just to remind everybody, the root beer stand is closing Labor Day, September 6th. Get there early, because when we run out, we close. The reason why the early closing is because Moeller has a lot of COVID students, and all our mug boys are quarantined. And we have a couple other, all our kids went back to school, and we're just at our wits' end. So he said Labor Day's it for this year, but probably next year we're open a little earlier again, and he's coming up with some new plans, so he might be able to use the mugs again. So I'll keep you posted.